Next up is Mr. Ken Witherow. And Ken was born in Rochester and continues to live in the area. He became interested in politics in his teens and currently finds himself co-running the Rochester conservative websites. While he claims to be uncomfortable in the spotlight, I'm not sure about that, having spent some time with him, he feels that it is his duty to speak here today. In fact, Ken is the only one who has spoken at all 4 of the Tea Party events. So please, a nice warm right-wing extremist welcome for Mr. Ken Witherow. Thank you, Ken.
Not quite as tall as Kevin here, 1 second. Yeah. Okay. Good afternoon. Like most of us here today, I believe the government governs best.
Get right in there.
Like most of us here today, I believe the government governs best when it governs least. In the coming election, if Assemblyman Brian Kolb gets his way, you'll be asked if you would like a statewide constitutional convention. This... Keep going with it. This is the New York State Constitution. It's 46 pages long. This is the U.S. Constitution. This controls our entire government. It's 6 pages long. I know some people out there believe the solution of fixing New York lies within fixing this document. However, if there's a constitutional convention, who do you think will be the people drafting the document? It will be the politically well-connected, the very people that are a problem in New York. It sure sounds appealing. I'd love to see provisions for recall and voter-initiated referendums, giving us a say in the power. But do you think those currently in power want to relinquish their stranglehold? Take their hands off our throats? I think it's more likely that rather than a whole new constitution, we're going to see lots of little tweaks that sound good, but are really aimed at making things worse. Rather, I think we should consider something far more profound, something many of us have here rumbled about for decades. I think we need to adopt the mantle of Charlie Eames, the late patriot we remembered earlier today.
Yeah, Charlie!
Now, Charlie wasn't just active in the Tea Party movement. For years, he often found himself in a room, sitting alone after promised people failed to show up. He strongly advocated for one goal, the division of New York into 2 different states.
Yeah.
Charlie worked endlessly, devoting a significant portion of his life to freeing the people of the state from the ineptitude of the government in Albany. He even tried running for office as a third party that he helped to create. And by motivating, educating, and inspiring people from all backgrounds to take their state back. Just like Charlie, everyone who came here today doesn't have the power to work to change the hearts and minds of your fellow citizens, but a patriotic obligation to do so. And I think it's pretty obvious none of us are alone anymore. Downstaters have complained for years about sending tax money upstate, while upstaters have bemoaned the regulations foisted upon us by the New York City Albany regime, which have strangled our economy. They didn't care because they had Wall Street, and as long as the city thrived, those of us outside didn't matter. Now that they've faltered, we sit on exploding deficits, runaway debt, and yet more proposals for yet more taxation, and still they refuse to cut spending. Nationally, New York is dark blue. But if you exclude Long Island, New York City, Albany, and the Hudson Valley between them, we're split almost evenly between the left and the right. I think that's important to remember. Do Senators Schumer, Clinton, or even Gillibrand represent the interests of upstate? No. Do they speak for you? No. I know they don't speak for me. In fact, look at our statewide elected politicians. Don't look at their party, look at where they're from. Patterson, New York City. Schumer, New York City. Gillibrand, Albany. Ravitch, New York City. Pataki, New York City. Spitzer, New York City. Cuomo, both of them, New York City. Skelos, Long Island. Then, of course, maybe the biggest thug of them all, Sheldon Silver, New York City. In fact, I think Brian Cole might be the only statewide guy that isn't from the power region of New York. Then again, he isn't elected to that position by his fellow assemblymen, not the voters. West Virginia split with Virginia over the issue of seceding from the Union during the Civil War, becoming our 35th state. They set the precedent that it can be done. For far too long, Albany has refused our pleas to permit our redress of grievances. For far too long, we've had mandates shoved onto us by New York City and Albany. It's time to demand our voices to be heard, to demand the right to representation in Congress and self-governance as a state. Let New York keep their constitution. Let them modify it however they want. In return, let us become the 51st state, a state of our own, a free upstate.
Thank you, Ken. That's a great thought. And Ken, yes, Ken, you're right.